Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to Florida Repertory Theater's Stage at Home virtual Talkback series for May 22nd, 2020. I'm Jason Parrish. I'm your Associate Artistic Director and host for the afternoon. As we do every week, I want to begin by thanking our loyal viewers who have been so supportive of this weekly broadcast since April 10th. Every Friday, you help us to break viewership records, and more importantly, you help us to stay engaged in a conversation that celebrates actors, directors, designers, playwrights, staffers, and technicians who are the beating heart of this theater company. Whether you're a tile on our Brady Bunch Zoom family, watching on Facebook Live, or listening to our podcast, welcome to the discussion. This week, we look at Florida Rep's popular conservatory program and how it's grown over the past 10 years. The program is designed to give a professional theater experience to students across Southwest Florida as a supplement to their school's programming. And since its creation in 2010, the conservatory program has produced Newsies, Matilda, A Chorus Line, Heather, School of Rock, Metamorphoses, Peter and the Starcatcher, Romeo and Juliet, the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, the 13, the musical, Pippin, Shrek, Big River, and Oliver, starring a young actor who went from here to Broadway's Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. The program has given countless young actors, stage managers, and technicians a springboard into college theater programs and careers beyond. And now we're even beginning to see some of those college grads come back to Florida Rep as interns and even staff members. The conservatory is not afraid to take on consequential work that challenges its students and its audience. Last summer, for example, it tackled Spring Awakening, a musical that deals with sexuality, depression, suicide, and a whole host of issues that were facing a group of teens on their way to becoming adults. Under the leadership of 4 different education directors in its time, the program has grown exponentially and become an essential part of the arts education landscape in Southwest Florida. And now, under Education Director Kody C. Jones, the program is ready to take on a new challenge and give students a masterclass in developing new work. Today, Stage at Home welcomes Kody Jones and playwright Eric Coble to discuss the creation of Bulletproof Backpack, which takes on school violence. This play is a co-commission with Oregon Children's Theater and will have its world premiere here this August. Also on our panel today are 3 people whose research, expertise, and groundwork has been instrumental in the development of this piece: psychologist Dr. Wright, who works at FGCU, and conservatory students Brice Kingsley and Danica Murray. Thank you all so much for being here. As always, we'll begin with introductions. So before we talk about how the project came together, let's meet our panel. We'll start with Eric Coble. As our audiences know, Florida Rep formally began producing new work on its main stage in 2014 with our PlayLab Festival. But actually, our journey of commissioning plays started 7 years before that with you, Eric. So if you could tell us a bit about yourself and your career as a playwright, and where along the way your career has intersected with Florida Rep.
Sure. I fell into playwriting from acting. I started acting. I didn't have the benefit of the programs like you have there at Florida Rep, but I was acting in high school through college, and then I started writing plays, tumbled into it there, and then was lucky enough to get productions, and I kept writing plays. And so that's what I've been doing now for my entire career. And as I was getting started, I didn't ever have a particular genre I wanted to write in. So I wrote for adults, I wrote dark comedies and dramas and things, but I also started writing theater for young audiences, and mostly doing adaptations of Poe stories or things like that. And along the way, some of my work came to the attention of the folks at Florida Rep, and I was commissioned to write a new play. One of the first commissions I think I got in my career, actually, certainly amongst writing for young audiences. And it was a piece about electricity, the nature of electricity, safety around electricity, and it was going to tour the schools. And I got to come down and work on the piece there, and it went very well. It was a great pleasure. And then Florida Rep went on its way. I went on my way. We kept doing our own thing, and at a certain point, then Kody arrived on the scene and asked me to, and decided to do a production of my adaptation of The Giver, which was adapted from the book by Lois Lowry, and in part of doing that, he invited me to come down and be part of a conference about it. There's the electrical play right there, Zap. Yeah. It's right.
And
It's
we
just
actually
like The Giver.
produced.
It really
we
is.
produced,
Every play I've ever written has looked pretty much like those pictures of Zelda.
And these are pictures from 3 separate productions. So we did the world premiere, and then we did it 2 times after.
Nice, very nice. So along the way, then Kody directed The Giver, and I came down and got to see that, and we had a great time. I was blown away by his ability to pull the cast together, and his directing and the design and everything. And I got to hang out with Lois Lowry again. There we are on stage, and so we started talking about doing another piece together. Because I think Kody and I kind of formed a mutual respect society, and so then we worked on adapting the book that Kody found, Refugee, by Alan Gratz, and it was a world premiere, another commission, and so the Florida Rep production was the world premiere of that, and it got great acclaim, and Alan came down and saw it, and he really enjoyed it, and so the whole process was quite great. And this other picture that you're seeing now was one of my shows for adults that was done in the PlayLab 2016. It was called In Vivo then. Now it's called These Mortal Hosts. And another different kind of experiment in storytelling for me. So I've had this ongoing relationship with Florida Rep, one way or another, with the PlayLab and with the students and everything. And it's been just really enriching. And then, so Kody and I, because we continue to enjoy working together, he was like, well, what else can we do? Let's think of another piece. And that's when he came up with the idea that would eventually go on to become Bulletproof Backpack, which we'll talk about.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric, for that little trip down memory lane. And thank you for your work over the years. And we look forward to talking about this piece. Kody, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling us a bit about your history with the company and before you got here. And give us a little bit of an overview of the entire education program before we jump into talking about Bulletproof Backpack.
Yeah, sure. This is my 4th season, so this coming one, next year, will be my 5th season here at Florida Rep. And I loved every second of it. The time before that, I guess I was getting my master's in acting, and I acted around the country a little bit, and I worked in TYA and adult plays, and then I was an artistic director of a summer stock and artistic director of a community theater. I tried a little bit of everything before I kind of found my footing here at Florida Rep. I never wanted to steer too far away from education. It's always been a passion of mine. My undergrad is in education. And the work that we're able to do here and that we have the resources to do here with our Southwest Florida area kids is just remarkable. And the Southwest Florida area kids are remarkable, and I tell them this all the time. After working with kids in Chicago and Detroit and the big city of Fargo, I can tell you the kids we have here and the passion and the professionalism and it's just remarkable. And it's inspiring every day. They inspire every project we do in the education department. To talk about education department here at Florida Rep, there's always a lot going on. The conservatory is just one of 5 bigger programming options that we have at education department. It's what we call a professional experience, as Jason said, where we take more advanced students and really give them every professional production quality and production team member quality that we would on one of our main stage shows. So they could start to learn professionalism and artistic integrity and such that you see every day at the main stage of Florida Rep. It's really grown over the years. Conservatory, as you saw there's a pool. We've definitely grown, and we've been able to keep raising the bar for the kids, and they keep raising it themselves higher and higher. So the more they reach for it, the more Florida Rep's going to keep giving them the options. We also have a wonderful TYA program, Theater for Young Audiences, where we take 6 acting interns. So these are graduates of college theater graduates that we find all over the country, and they come in and do tours. Like there's Junie B. Jones we did last year, and The Giver is one of them. There's Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And we get a different 6 acting interns every year. We're already excited about next season. We're going to be doing Ella Enchanted and Mockingbird, which is a play about an 11-year-old girl with Asperger's. So we take those to schools all over Southwest Florida. And among other things, we have some big summer camps In the summer, we do a spring camp. We offer all kinds of classes and scholarships to kids. We're always trying to try something different every year too, to give every student a different experience.
Excellent, thank you, Kody. Also on our panel today are two of our conservatory teens, Danica Murray and Brice Kingsley. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and telling us a bit about your journey with Florida Rep. So take it away, Brice.
Hi, I'm excited to be here. I'm Brice Kingsley. I've had the wonderful opportunity to perform in a couple conservatory shows at the Florida Rep, including Newsy, Spring Awakening, Heathers, and Metamorphosis. I also got the wonderful privilege to work alongside these lovely people and a handful of students in the early construction of the show.
Excellent. Danica.
Hi, I've been with Florida Rep since summer camp of 2015. So I've done summer camps here and a bunch of the conservatories from starting with Peter and the Starcatcher all the way up through a chorus line. And I was involved with Bulletproof Backpack since fall as well, where I was part of the research process. And I've even had the fortune of working in an internship with the Rep and being a teaching artist for a brief time. So I've done just about everything here, and the Rep is my home for sure.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much. And Laura Wright, we'll eventually get to talk about what you did for Bulletproof Backpack, but at the moment, just tell us who you are and what it is you do. And you also have a relationship with Florida Rep Education outside of being a part of this process. So tell us about that as well.
Sure. So like Jason said, my name is Laura Wright. I'm actually a psychologist and I work at Florida Gulf Coast University, which might seem a little strange in the beginning to think about like, well, why would they need a psychologist to be working with them on this? But I'll let Kody explain all of that. But my relationship with Florida Rep, I think started, I think about 10 or 15 years ago, right? Or not, probably 10 or 12 years ago at this point. When my daughter first came to her very first summer camp, which was Peter Pan. Alice in Wonderland, actually, I think it was. And so my kids have been doing the camps there and the conservatory programs and even going to the Junior Theater Festival in Atlanta a couple years now. So, and I also, my husband and I are patrons and subscribers for the main stage as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here today. So Kody and Eric, if you wouldn't mind both sort of tag teaming this answer, tell us a bit about the origins of this project. Tell us what the play is about, Kody, how it came about, and how the process began.
Take it away, Kody.
Cody, I think you should
his
start.
idea.
Yeah.
He was the very germ started with him, so he gets.
That's the best way to put it. And kind of like Eric was saying, I met him 4 years ago, and I've always been a fan of his work prior to then. And when we got together, we just had a working rapport. We just always have. And I think I've told him before, as a director, you want to read a script and you want to start visualizing it. It might not be that, you might go different choices, but you want to be able to read it and start seeing things and feeling things and have a connection to it as a director, so you can start to visualize how that piece is going to come together and conceptualize. And with Eric's work, I can always do that. And that's just a gift to have work like that you can read and you can see it come to life. And you don't let go of somebody like that. So every time I see him, I say, what do you want to do next year? What do you want to do next year? And I guess when we'll keep working until we run out of good stuff, hopefully. But so it's all thanks to him and his willingness to keep coming back here and working with us at the Rep, but also working with the kids here as well. But just like any, I guess play, it seems like it always grows in a bar or a restaurant, Eric. I know that Refugee was born in the Lodge, and I think this show was born in Ford's Garage. But I called him up initially, not this past November, but the November before that. So quite a while ago, and it was after Refugee was starting to get some success, and I said this. I said, look, what do you want to do next? We should do something next. This is working. I said, I really have a passion for, we had tackled immigration and some things in Refugee. I said, let's let's do something on gun violence or school violence. And initially the idea was to do something on Parkland, and to do not a show on the events, what happened, but the aftermath and what happens after that, and how do we cope as human beings, young and old, with something like that. And we jumped into it, and it started with me trying to find folks to interview for that were victims or witnesses of that atrocity. And I was having a lot of trouble finding folks that would want to talk about it, as you might imagine. And that's when Dr. Wright came on, and Laura. She's gonna yell at me later for calling her Dr. Wright, but she was an amazing asset, and we went to her college where she works, and we started talking to folks, and we did get the ball rolling. We started having some people come talk to us and give some accounts, but we never got enough. We only heard from 2 or 3 people that were actually there, and then after that there was only maybe a handful of people that knew someone who was there. And at some point I called Eric up last summer. We were in rehearsal for Spring Awakening, and I said, we can't find the people, we can't find the information. And I don't want to speak for Eric, but I feel like neither one of us wanted to move forward on a piece where we weren't having the right voice for, the right account for. And both of us didn't want to give up on the subject matter. And then through a lot of nervous phone calls, and we were able to keep the ball rolling. And Eric had come up with the idea of really focusing on drills and what that does to the psyche, to a young person. And I think that conversation began with Eric and I never experienced drills as kids, because there wasn't, not like there is now, school shootings like this. I mean, when Columbine happened when I was, I think I was in high school, and everything is just kind of snowballed from there. So it's something we kind of wondered, what is that doing to our new generations? That literally have to go through these drills and these precautions and these metal detectors. What does that do to someone socially? And what kind of anxiety and tensions and pressures does that add on to our young people when they're trying to learn? And we really wanted to explore what that does. And then when we found out what it was, Eric took it from there. And I'll let you continue, Eric, before we talk about the group of kids.
Yeah, I think it was that's exactly my memory too, which is good that we all agree on what the genesis was. But it was what struck me once we ran into the wall of not finding people who wanted to speak from Parkland, understandably, was what occurred to me was that there's going to be it's just an almost infinitesimally small amount of kids who are ever going to be involved in a school shooting. It's just statistically almost impossible for it to happen to you. Obviously it's happening all the time, but statistically almost no kid is going to experience that. However, almost 100% of our students are going to experience the drills, because that's what we have decided is a worthwhile response to this, and a necessary response. And then as Kody said, that got us thinking about, like, so what does that do? And neither of us knew from our own experience of what is it like to go through either several times a year or even monthly, this idea that you're being told that someone in your own school or someone from outside your school may come in and try to kill you today. And so you need to be ready for that. And that's something that none of us who are, over 18 or 20 ever had to deal with that. We dealt with fire drills, tornado drills maybe. For people even older, they went through the nuclear missile drills of getting under your desk. But the idea of someone personally coming in and attacking you and attacking your friends is new in this country. We've been very lucky as a country that it is new. I mean, it's been going on elsewhere for quite a while, some places. But so we just really got interested in that, and how do we explore that on stage, and what does it mean? And both of us realized pretty quickly that we didn't have the knowledge to be able to talk about that because we didn't experience it. And then it became clear what we needed to do was get the actual voices of the people who were living it. And that's when it came about. We decided, what if the students talk to other students? Let's get their direct, transcripts of what they think about it. Let's come up with questions, and let's have them. All the students who are involved there in the program are all very smart and eager, and artistically talented. So why not have them be part of the creation process? It would be more interesting than just me trying to dream stuff up and do research online and things. And we had access to Laura as well, and her knowledge and her ways into the storyline. So that was the next step, was then figuring out what questions that who would do the interviewing, and what questions we would have them ask each other, how to record them, and then all of that. The plan was to have it spread out, have everyone ask, get as many interviews as we could get over a limited amount of time, send all of those to me, and then I would become the clearinghouse for that. I would tease out all the pieces from these interviews and hopefully weave them together into a coherent play that would do justice to the interviewers, to the interviewees, and to all the people who are going through this around the country. So it's a pretty tall order, but I felt like all the pieces were in place to pull that off well, and that's where we started. That was the experiment began.
Thank you, Eric. And so, Laura, Danica, and Brice, you were an integral part of that process of conducting these interviews. So, Laura, why don't you tell us when you came on board and what your portion of this project looked like, and then we'll move to Danica and Brice and hear about that process of interviewing your peers.
Sure. Well, in the beginning, like Kody mentioned, Kody came to FGCU, and we went to 2 or 3 of the classes on campus. And we just kind of started talking to students in large groups, and we started getting a little bit of feedback here and there about what their experiences have been. I think we have around 45 students at FGCU who are either from the Parkland area or were actually, were there the day that the event happened. And then from there, when the work started kind of shifting a little bit, Kody was like, hey, would you like to serve as the dramaturge for this project? And I was like, I have no idea what that means. I don't know. You have to tell me. Is this something I want? I'm not really sure about this. So he explained how oftentimes a dramaturge is somebody who does a lot of research that is kind of within the theater company, or who works for the theater, and that he often likes to use outside people that maybe don't have a role directly in the theater, maybe who like theater or who have, a little bit of experience with that, but who have a little bit more kind of subject matter experience. And so that's kind of how my initial role and how I got kind of started. And so I started being really, I started sending lots of articles, and some of them were just things you would just see. Maybe I would look up something about trauma or about gun violence in general, or about specific things having to do with specific events that happened. And I would send them to Kody, and I would send them to Eric. And I was like, is this too much? Is this too little? And they were like, no, keep it coming. So, and then Kody and I have had several really great phone calls as well, in terms of like bouncing ideas off of each other, in terms, and things that they might want to incorporate and not. And then I think at some point we had a meeting, Kody and Eric and I had a meeting about what do we want these questions to be? How can we formulate a list of questions to ask some of the local students that would get information that would be helpful, but also the questions themselves wouldn't be triggering or traumatizing. And so we did that. We came up with this list of questions, and then we met with all the wonderful students like Danica and Brice, and I think there were a group of about how many, Kody? I don't remember now.
19
students, and we kind of talked about how to kind of talk to people about this. I did a really very much too long talk with them about kind of trauma in general and how people are impacted by that. And then we had some people that actually came to the theater to have these interviews, and then everybody kind of went out and did the interviews with their peers and with other students.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A reminder to our viewers on Zoom, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat window and we'll get to it. For those of you watching on Facebook, you can put that in the comment thread, and we'll get to those questions as well. So feel free to ask the question of anyone on the panel about this process or this play. Danica and Brice, if you wouldn't mind talking a bit about what was the experience like taking these survey questions out into the community and talking to your peers? Danica.
So the whole process was very discussion based, and I like that, when Kody came to us the first time, he really was interested in what we had to say, and to me that was very striking, because previously I don't think students like myself have been given a platform like that, where they're like, what do you have to say about politics or current events or what's happening right now? And so we made it a point to find students who were not necessarily involved in theater, because some of us can be a little like-minded, like Dr. Wright said. But I brought in a friend from Model UN, and one who was, a student athlete, and everyone had like they branched out into every group of students to see what we had in common. And there was a lot of different responses, and some of them I didn't anticipate. That while I had felt very strongly about gun violence in a certain way, some of my peers had no thoughts or no opinions on it whatsoever, and some of them, had closer connections to it than others. So it was a much broader response than I had expected. But getting to engage in that discussion with people my age was very enlightening for me, because I got to do it firsthand and see what people's firsthand experiences were.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Brice, how about you?
Yeah, with this whole experience, it's with these gun drills going on, or the shooter drills going on, it's not a lot of students get to be able to explain or talk about these experiences, or necessarily get to sit down with other students, and kind of say how their feelings are about, what's going on, or how they feel about, how do they take it seriously, or, there's students from private schools or public schools or different types of schools where it's very different. They have very different ways of what the solution is and how to deal with the issues. And there's some people that are very quiet and timid that haven't gotten out of their shell at that moment, and that I feel like as being the students and just being people that understood and what we got to learn, as well as just know that we need to be make these students comfortable in order to get the information that we needed and get their true, honest opinion, and it was very interesting. There's many views and many feelings, and I ended up finding a local girl from Colombia who just moved here like 3 years ago, and so the whole experience of transitioning from another country and her school system to obviously ours is it was way different, and this the shooter drills is way completely different than what she's had from her own country, and it was very intriguing and interesting just to know and feel and understand these people's feelings towards this, and try to come to a common solution or to a solution or that we can try to move upon.
Thank you, Brice. Eric,
actually,
I wanted.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just gonna maybe answer the next question you're gonna ask, but I just wanted to point out something that I was just reminded of listening to Danica and Brice, was that the other thing we found out, especially as they were beginning to do those interviews, was it was seemingly like no adult had ever asked them, like, what do you think about these drills, right? The adults were asking each other, what's the most effective drill? What do you find effective? Like, all the teachers and administrators were talking to each other for the kids, and the kids were talking amongst themselves. But there was no adult saying, so what is it like? How can we make these more effective? What do you think about this? What would be more helpful, less helpful, whatever? And we began to see that through the interviews, that this was an opportunity now for a group of students to actually speak up and to be able to present their side of this to hopefully adults who will see the show, who will come see it, and just so that we kind of stop talking amongst our own peer groups and can begin to start the conversation generationally.
Right. And I wanted to ask you, Eric, as well, what did you do with how much information did you get back from them? So Kody said you had 19 students collecting interviews from multiple sources. So what happened next, Eric?
We had 19 students, 55 interviews is how many I had. So Kody dutifully sent me audio files. All the students recorded these interviews, some of them lasting a few minutes, some of them lasting 15, 20 minutes. Sent them all to me, and I just sat down over the course of multiple days, and I listened, and I listened, and I listened, and I listened, and I jotted notes, and jotted notes, and jotted notes, and I got like all these notes. I have, I think about, 17 pages for 55 interviews of all the phrases that stuck in my mind, or the questions, and whoever, and it just, and so I could begin to tease out, like, what are the threads? What are the commonalities? Where are the differences? What do people from different backgrounds feel about this? Who is really pro-gun ownership? Who is really anti-gun ownership? How do those things fit together? What are the arguments? And it was so rich. Like, the interviews they brought back were so rich that then it, by necessity, just becomes, how do you winnow out the best of the best and or the most useful? Even though there's some amazing stories that I heard in these interviews, they're probably not going to make it into the final play just because there wasn't an exact fit for them, that we would have had to make a different kind of play to fit everything. But it became that, and then again, figuring out, like, what were the threads and how best to present those. Do we do it as, and then Kody and I began to have this conversation of, do we do it as a series of monologues? Do we just have every student step forward and kind of present, this is my feeling on it, this is my feeling on it, this is my feeling on it? And there's a certain power in that. And then the more I thought about it, it felt like that I kind of, as an audience, I began to feel like I was going to be hungry for characters, and to really kind of want to watch a journey, an emotional journey to hook in, just so I wasn't like, oh, here's the 15th monologue on this, and here's the 16th monologue, and here's the 17th. But like, how do we weave these into characters? How do I take out these facts and these ideas that have been raised, put them into certain very specific characters' mouths and minds, and then have those characters interact over the course of a plot line? Like, where is there a beginning and an ending to this story, and a crisis that they have to deal with, for which provides the platform that then we can talk about these questions? And that's kind of where we ended up with Bulletproof Backpack, which I believe the title came from Kody. He sent me an article either called that or just on the concept, as we have seen in stores, of the Bulletproof Backpack that actually does exist now for parents to buy for their children.
Well, Laura Wright, our dramaturg, sent me that because as she was sending us all kinds of stuff, she found it, and I don't think she had any intention that that's what we would do with it. But it was, I remember sitting on my porch just staring at that image of a bulletproof backpack. It was real. It wasn't satire. It's a real thing. And I just couldn't believe it. And I sent it to Eric, and I think that's how it came about. I was like, this could be the title. And I mean, it's just something so striking about it. And I don't know.
Yeah, it felt like the right title for the piece. And then it was coming up with the play to fit the title in some ways. Again, using all these great stuff. So yeah, and that's been the journey since then. Over the last few months has been creating this piece and then refining it and going back and forth with Kody and working toward this August production at this point.
Right, and for those of you who don't know, Bulletproof Backpack was supposed to have been read as part of our 2020 PlayLab Festival, which of course isn't going to happen. So we hope that everyone will have an opportunity to see it in August. And Kody, if you wouldn't mind talking a bit about the plans for the production as they are now.
Sure. We're going to be in the big space, Historic Arcade Theater, and it's going to open on August 13th through the 15th, and then the following week as well, August 20th through the 22nd. All the performances will be at 7 p.m., except for we're going to have 2 Saturday matinees as well during those 2 weeks, and those will be at 2 p.m. So we are planning on going forward. We have our designs already in, and we're planning on hopefully starting to move production stuff into that space in the next couple of weeks.
And am I correct in saying that some of the rehearsals will begin in a virtual format?
The Bat Boy ones will.
Oh, okay.
But we're going to start rehearsal towards mid-July. The cast is relatively small in comparison to Newsies or other shows that we've put on.
Anything is.
But so we're able to keep it to small groups, and of course a lot of precautions are going to be, and things are going to be put in place to make sure it's a safe, healthy environment. But we are moving forward. We're really excited about it too.
Sure. And I wanted to ask Eric if you wouldn't mind, and you mentioned a little bit of this as you talked about the plot structure, but because it's based on interviews, I wanted to make sure it was clear to all of our audiences what sort of narrative format it takes. As far as is it a documentary piece, or is it a storytelling piece that gets involved with the character?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's it's not documentary. All the things in it are ideas that have been expressed through these interviews. but it is a fictional piece. I created 8 or 9. I'm already blanking on how many fictional characters there are in the show.
10.
10. There we go. It got bigger. We're approaching Newsies. This is going to be amazing. It was so there's these 10 fictional characters, 2 adults, and then 8 students. And the form that felt natural to take was to start with one character, and we get to know that one character, who is a young woman who has this massive dilemma. I don't know, should I talk about the plot that way, Kody? Should it be a surprise? Should it be, I don't know what the premise?
Many of the people here would have seen it in our PlayLab.
Good point. All right, well, here's the premise is that this young woman who's a senior in high school, I believe she's either junior or senior, and she is she has accidentally looked over during one of her classes and seen that one of her fellow classmates, who she does not know well, who's not a close friend, is compiling this list of students' names called the list. And as soon as that student sees our young woman noticing this list, he immediately closes down the file and shuts it all down and does not want it to be seen. And so our hero in this is left with this dilemma of, well, what did I just see? It was a list of my fellow students. I don't know the student who was making it. It could be for any number of reasons. There's 100 viable reasons he would make a list, one of which is he's making a hit list. And we have all been trained as students to, if you see something, say something, that like this could potentially be dangerous. And you don't want to be the person who knew it was going to be a school shooting and then have never said anything about it. On the other hand, she's very concerned that there's also, 99 reasons why this kid could be making this list that have nothing to do with school shootings. And if she starts the process of police investigation and school investigation into the student's life, it could ruin his life. And in fact, there has been examples of that in the real world of students who got called out on stuff that was questionable, and then they had to spend like their entire year dealing with the authorities, and then their college applications all went to hell, and it just like really screwed up their lives because they made a bad joke, or they made something that was not intended to be violent but was misconstrued. And so the lead character in the play, or the central character in the play, is left with this dilemma: do I report this or not? And the only answer she has is to call her best friend, one of her best friends. And then they start talking about it on the phone and start trying to devise a plan. And then that friend calls a friend, and another friend calls a friend, and it begins, and then it spider webs out to where eventually there's a whole bunch of students who know about this, but they don't know the name of the student who wrote the list. And eventually it gets to some adults, a teacher and security guard, and it's just about, what do you do if you're in that situation? How much is an appropriate amount of paranoia and how much is an unhealthy amount? And then that leads into a discussion about the drills and about school safety and about gun ownership and about laws and about adults' responses to this versus kids' responses. And all this stuff gets churned up via this plot line as this young woman and her friends are trying to decide what's the best way to respond to this crisis in real time. They've kind of got like about an hour that evening before they need to report something or not report something. So that felt like a really inherently dramatic, hard crisis to put a character in, which is what I'm always looking for as a playwright. And then to bring all these issues forward. So that's the piece. It is fictional, but all the issues involved are all the ones raised in the real world by the students.
That's excellent, and what an excellent way to handle it. Thank you. I wanted to start this question off with Brice and Danica, if you would, but of course anyone on the panel can answer this. What, as you did these interviews, what became some of the most striking observations to you? What pieces of information did you find unexpected, or did you find common throughout? But any of your more striking observations?
I know that what I noticed right away is there is no consensus on what you're supposed to do in a school shooting. Half the kids we ask, they're like, here's the order, it's fight, run, hide, or here's the order, hide, then run, then fight. And half of them would be like, oh, hide in the school bathroom, that's your first thing. And some people will say, no, don't get caught in the school bathroom. And I think, when I read the play, and Eric did a very brilliant job of implementing that there is, if you are caught in a situation like this, you don't know what to do. There's no definite answer of what what you should be doing in a situation like that, because every school drill is handled differently depending on if you go to, like Brice said, like if you go to a private school or a public school or a charter school, and even from the jump from elementary to middle to high school, it gets different as well, which we've, students like Brice and I have done those things where I started school shooting drills in kindergarten and I finished them in my senior year of high school. So you see it evolve, you see it change, and there's no strong consensus. So it's very confusing for a lot of the students. And that was very evident in the interviews that we did.
Also very interesting is having other students going into the mindset of thinking of how a school shooter would necessarily think, and going into just getting the paranoia up to the fact that, oh, we're going outside for a fire drill, you know about what happened in Parkland and other sorts, just thinking, having that paranoia and having to think like a killer sometimes that was very striking to just hear some people's observations about that, as well as people wanting to fight the violence with more violence in some ways or form, or having, if guns are the issue, or having more guns be able to be sent to the teachers, or have the training be sent to the teachers so the teachers can have the use of a weapon as well. And it's major two different stories where you want to keep guns out. So some students want metal detectors, or feel scared of the metal detectors, or people are scared that they would like to have guns and that would be more secure for them. And it's crazy how the range of just emotion of how people feel like they're going to deal with these issues. And as well as we were talking about interviewing with students, and I think after our first time actually interviewing the students, we actually brought up the conversation about what about the teachers, what about the principals, what about the people, the administrators that work at the schools, and they're being the ones that have to protect us, or the teachers having to protect their students during a situation of that sort, and how what they would be going through, or what they would be feeling, or what they think is the best solution, or how to handle the situation is very interesting as well.
Thank you. And I'll say to both of you, and on behalf of society, I hate that this is an issue that we have to talk about. I was a sophomore in high school, I believe, when Columbine happened, and it sort of altered the course of where at least where I was going to school. It altered the course of how we dealt with security issues, and we were only on the front end of it. And I just am so sorry that this has become an issue that we still have to deal with, but I'm so thankful that people like Kody and Eric and Laura exist in this world to try to use theater to shine some light on it and hopefully do some good about it. Eric, Kody, Laura, any observations from you?
Just one thing I wanted to add to what Brice and Danica were just saying. As they pointed out, what was one of the things that was striking was just the huge variety, both within students and amongst teachers and administrators, on all the questions. There was only one question, one issue that was unanimous, and where everyone across the board seemed to have the exact same answer, and that was whether you thought teachers should be armed. And the answer was no, unanimous, very loudly. As soon as that was asked, almost every student and teacher was no. And then they gave very eloquent reasons why. Everything else was up for grabs, whether students should be armed, whether we should be trained in weapons, should we be metal detectors, everything else was across the board. I was struck by that being the one thing that everyone agreed would be no, let's not give the teachers firearms for whatever reason.
Kody, Laura, observations on the interview questions?
For me, and it's one we talked about in the playwriting class, or the Bulletproof class, was most students, probably 75-80% of the students, had a plan, a pre-planned idea of what they would do if/when their school or classroom was shot up. And that blew my mind. I mean, to be a student, to be a 14-year-old, 17-year-old student, and have to have a safety plan and how you're going to survive your school day stored away in your head. And then it even went on. I have a plan for when I'm in English class. I have a plan for when I'm in gym. I have a plan when I'm in music. The doors are over here, and there's something I could fight with over here. And they were very detailed. And they didn't seem worrisome about it. It just said, well, I have to be ready. It was just, again, it's like this new generation. It's just this is becoming the new normal, and people like my age and older are just like, this is not normal. And what is this affecting? How else is it affecting the kids, where they have to fight or flight every single day when they should be worrying about geometry and who's going to take them to the prom?
Yeah, exactly. Laura, anything from your observations?
No, and I think that that's something that I really took from this, is that just this, you have this constant level of anxiety that just doesn't go away. And there are a lot of students now, even I see it at my work at the university, that, you can handle, most people can handle kind of the ups and downs of life. But then when you also have these other constant anxieties layering on top, it just gets to be a lot. And like Kody said, I mean, how in the world can you focus on geography or math when you have to worry about, am I going to make it through the day? And so we see tons of students with anxiety these days, and it makes perfect sense to me why that's all incredibly heightened. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question from the Zoom chat window. Emily asks, will there be a streaming option to see Bulletproof Backpack virtually? Kody.
Eric and I discussed it via email a little bit, and then we're going on to the next stage of making that happen. But we're definitely trying to make that happen just so we can have folks who aren't comfortable about coming into the theater yet still be able to engage in this new work.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I wanted to also ask Brice and Danica, first of all, you've done this work on the show. Are you in the show? And then also I wanted to ask about your future plans. Where are you in the high school and college and planning journey, if you don't mind answering any of those questions?
So Kody is holding auditions right now for
great.
Bulletproof Backpack. You can submit your auditions virtually at the moment, and that's going on, an ongoing process. But I mean, I know, and I don't speak for Brice, but I had such a great time this past year working on it already. And I remember when Kody first brought it up a long while ago, and it's awesome that I get to see this being manifested at any rate. And as far as future plans, I just graduated high school this past year. I've been at FSW and FGCU for 1 year now, and I'm just getting my degree and writing it out, see what's going to happen next.
I should say, barring where we are currently, all things being normal.
Yeah.
Well, the Bulletproof auditions are still happening until May 27th, I believe is the last day. But if not, if anything, I would just to be involved in the show anyway, even if I'm not particularly in it, would be lovely. I think this is a great piece of art that needs to be seen, I believe. And I'm currently in summer sessions, summer courses at FSW, and I plan to get my AA and hopefully move on to an out-of-state university.
Yes.
So yeah.
Great. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for that to be a trick question about being in the show. I should have looked up that information about auditions ahead of time. So it's on you, Kody, basically. There were a lot of people here today. Excellent. Also, Brice and Danica, tell us what has this experience taught you, and then more broadly, what have you gotten from doing the conservatory program over these years?
Well, this experience has taught me a whole lot. I mean, I really do commend Kody and Eric for doing this, because I do feel that for a very long time, students and young people in particular, that their concerns have been delegitimized. And it's very easy to delegitimize students, because we're too young or we don't have the life experience or whatever. But I think in reality, students and young people in general are on the front lines of every major movement. They fight and die in every war for this country. They headlined the civil rights movement and the LGBT movements, and now the gun violence movement, especially the kids from Parkland. And so this was a really great experience in getting my voice and the voice of students of Southwest Florida heard, and students from everywhere actually heard. And that to me has been very heartwarming and very wonderful to see. And getting this broader perspective on what people think, on what the students think, has been good to know as well. You know, I didn't realize the extent that the extent of confusion that there was about gun violence and about school shooting drills and about how people feel on it. And so learning about how everyone felt was really great. The conservatory for me has been amazing. I've been...
Uh-oh. Hang on a second, Danica. We lost a bit of your sound, so I don't know if she can hear us. Danica, we're having issues with your sound, so we'll come back to that answer in just a sec. So Brice, if you could answer that question while we maybe look into Danica's sound issues. Brice.
No worries. I agree with everything that Danica said, as well as like all the fundamental skills that we got to learn throughout the process of the workshop. Just learning how to interview people and how to hopefully open them up and not be hostile and kind of get what we needed out of them, and just to have the proper skills of trying to structure a play and what we need and the research that needs to go into it, and the amount of just information, and just it worked so nicely just having a nice group of people, as well as people that have the experience that they have, you know, help us as well as just educate us and just give us exactly like Danica said, give us a voice. And this conservatory has always been, at least for me, been a place for my generation of people being able to have a voice and doing the shows that kind of I think the right words, require us or that are going through our times right now, and I couldn't see Bulletproof being done by 30-year-olds, you know, or someone that hasn't really gone through this experience, and I just couldn't see a better occasion to work out like this than having students the ages that are going through these shooter drills be able to perform the show and just have this experience and talk about these things. And I couldn't appreciate the opportunity anymore.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate your work on it. Kody, Eric, and Laura, if you could answer, this is sort of a loaded question, but in an ideal world, what do you hope that doing this production does for our community? And then Eric, if you could also talk a bit about how this play has been co-commissioned as well. So this is not the only production of it. So Kody, what do you hope our community takes from this?
I'll say this. When I get to do works like this one, or Refugee, or even Spring Awakening, as a director, and I want to stay as neutral as possible. I just want to give as sincere representations of human beings and what they may go through as possible, and then let that start a conversation. As political as this show sounds, as political as Refugee could have been, it's not about that. That's not the politics. It's so much deeper than that. It's just about just getting people's lives out there for other people to see and understand. And Refugee was a phenomenal writing that didn't cram politics. It didn't tell you to think one way or another, because it shouldn't. Theater should stir emotions that lead you to your own conclusions. It shouldn't tell you what your conclusions are. Eric has an exceptional gift at doing that in his writing. So what happens, I don't know. I love to be involved in works that just stir people to hopefully lead them. What I always say is hopefully it leads them to something better. You know, I don't think we're going to solve all the world's problems with this show, nor did we with Refugee, but did it lead to conversation? Absolutely. Did it show how much in common we have, even with the politics pulled out of it? Immensely. And I think that's where we need to come together on what we have in common as human beings, and taking the politics part out of it. And so that's what I'm hoping for.
Excellent. Laura.
Yeah, that was really striking for me in the beginning, because Kody was like, yeah, we're not going to answer questions. I was like, wait, what? we're not going to answer questions. We're not going to wrap it all up with the bow at the end and make people feel better. I thought that's what he was like, no, that's not what we do here. So, which was absolutely great. I just want to give also Danica and Brice and the other students who worked. You guys were amazing. For me, that was one of the best parts of this entire process because it really required you to sort of like go through your own stuff and thoughts and feelings about everything that we were talking about, so that you could actually be neutral when you were asking people questions. Because if your own stuff was coming up all the time, you couldn't have really gotten around that to be able to be really great, information gatherers. And so anyway, just working with you all was just such a great experience for me. So if nothing else, Jason, I think that was one of the best things I think that's come out of it. And this is, I don't really think that this is a political thing, but I will just say, having children in Florida in the public school system, they do these drills every month. It's once a month. And I honestly feel as a parent and as a psychologist that that's a ridiculous amount of time to spend towards, like Eric said, something that it just has such a low likelihood of happening. Yes, of course we want to be prepared, but at the same time, not only it kind of generates so much anxiety leading up to it and then afterwards, but I don't know that we need that much practice in this. So anyway, that's just my little thing in my head, that I don't know if anything will ever come of that, but I would love for us to not do this every single month.
That's something, yes, thank you. Eric.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone else has said. I think the goal for me was again not to provide the answers, because I've certainly got my opinions, but I don't have answers. And but it was to try to faithfully represent the voice of the students, because that became early on for me. The goal was to let them speak to the audience and to express their opinions about it, the multitude of opinions. So that's, if the audience feels they have heard from actual young people about this issue affecting young people's lives, then it will have worked, whatever the audience walks away with. To your point, the other exciting part for me is the expanding pool of the young voices that's going to be involved. That this is a co-commission with Oregon Children's Theater in Portland, who is kind of starting the second leg of it, as it were, as we speak. That they're going to follow the same process as the Florida students did, but they are going to go out and conduct their own interviews. They too have an academy at their theater, and a group of students who have gone through, from very small age to high school. So those students are going to go out and interview other students in Oregon, and then I will get all those interviews back as well. And I think as of now, my belief is I'm going to keep the same structure, but it's going to be weaving in those stories and seeing what echoes, what are universal, and what seems to be exactly what Florida students were saying, and what seems very different on the West Coast, if anything. And so weaving those stories in, and then coming up with a version that will live in Oregon that they will then produce there with their students and young actors, and then probably doing a combination of those for the final script. That, like, whatever, teasing together all the threads one more time for one more weaving, and then that will be the script. Then I'll send out to the rest of the country, crediting the creation from students from Florida and students from Oregon, and hopefully this is something that can then be done by high schools and colleges, many other places. We'll see you never know as a playwright what the life of the piece is going to be and what will catch and what won't. But I'm certainly going to work to get it out there once we have this kind of final draft of it. And hopefully, again, it'll continue to spark conversation in dozens or hundreds of other cities.
Yeah, wonderful. And that's a testament to the work we did here. It started here. Emily asks, how much has the script changed since submission to PlayLab? And I'll just clarify. So this play was a commission, which means it wasn't submitted for our adjudication. It was we asked the playwright to write it. So it wasn't a submission to the PlayLab. It wasn't something. This was Kody's idea that he went to Eric with, and so it had a slightly different beginning than other plays would. Danica, can we see if your sound works?
I hope so. Can you
hear
me?
So yes, let's have you answer that question about what has conservatory done for you?
Oh, a lot, like everything. It was really, I think it was one of the most formative things I've done through my teen years. I mean, not only like as a theater professional, but just as a person in general, you know, theater is huge for empathy and for developing yourself and for coming into yourself, especially at the age of 15 through 19 now. And I mean, Kody has helped me so much with college auditions. I went to SETC and got called back for 60 schools, which was, I wouldn't have been able to do that without the skills that I got here. And it's just, I mean, I can't thank the rep enough. I mean, getting to do an internship here with equity professionals has been incredible for me. Getting to sit on a panel like this with Broadway playwright Eric Coble and Kody C. Jones and Jason Parrish and Dr. Wright and Brice Kingsley, of course, has been incredible. So I'm very fortunate, and I encourage everyone who has kids who are just not even theater people, just interested in learning more about professionalism and life and everything. The rep is your place.
Excellent. Any final thoughts from our panel before we wrap up this week's discussion? And thank you, Danica, and thank you, Brice, for your insights. So glad that you were on this call with us today.
Yeah, I wanted to just address briefly again to your, I'm not sure if I can answer Emily's question that she had asked about the changes, but
please.
Just that it is continuing to evolve. That's the beauty of it being, the beauty and the terror of it being a new script, right? Is that it is not locked in until opening night. And in this particular script, it won't be locked in until after second opening night in Oregon and beyond that. But I'm still making changes now. Kody and I have discussed stuff, and I keep refining it and figuring like, well, this sequence is going on a little long, so I'll trim it back, or I need to expand this element, or this character has more to say about this, I think. So I'm continuing to revise. Even the latest script that Kody has is not the script that I'll be sending in to take into rehearsal. It's good enough, it's close, it's not gonna change radically. We'll have the same characters, Kody, it's okay. It's gonna be, it'll continue to evolve. So it'll, at this point, I kind of think of changes, rewrites as either being sledgehammer or scalpel, depending on what the script needs. And because sometimes you just need to break it all apart and start with the pieces again. And then the scalpel ones is where I think we are now, which is that I think the whole thing is there. It's just going to be little carvings to make the statue, to make the sculpture, little smoothing out of the stone, to create the thing. So I think that's where we are with the rewrites at this point, for the moment.
For the moment, yeah. Any final thoughts from you, Kody or Laura?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Eric always says, I won't change the characters, Kody. I remember with Refugee, I was like, I have to go to SETC, I have to cast this tomorrow, don't change the characters.
Right.
But
I haven't changed them. Once I tell you I won't, I don't.
No, you're right, yeah.
So far.
It's
We'll see, this will be the one.
It's a good partnership.
That's right. I'm going to come back to you next week and go like, you know what, Bulletproof Backpack, it's a one-person show. I was totally wrong. Only 10 actors. No, kidding. I'm just totally kidding. Totally kidding.
Going off of what Eric said and some of what Laura was saying earlier, and every show, every production, every piece of theater is supposed to be a collaboration, right? With your especially a new work. It's with your playwright, your dramaturg, your designers. This and that's definitely how I approach every piece too. I want to hear what everyone else in the room has to say. That's how you're going to get your best conceptualization of the piece and how you're going to make the most impact. I can say without a doubt, this show, this process has been the most collaborative that I have ever been involved in. A big part of that being having these students involved, and not just bringing us the interviews, but having their own opinions and having their own discussions and their own research. It goes without saying, working with Eric again, he's probably gonna be scared to come here in August because I'm gonna drag him to a bar and we're gonna do another show. But also Laura. I mean, her additions to this piece are, I don't know what it would be without her. Again, just her sending me some material led to the title of the show, and her helping us with the questions, and everybody's just had such an amazing part of this, and I think it's because everyone is so passionate about it, and so I just thank everybody for being involved. This has truly been the best collaboration. Can't wait for everyone to see it.
Thank you, Kody, and thanks everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us again for this week's Stage at Home. Let's have one more virtual round of applause for all of our panelists. Thank you all for spending your Friday afternoon with us. I also want to take a moment to recognize Florida Rep's grand education sponsor, Sanibel Captiva Community Bank, for their continued support, and to acknowledge that Bulletproof Backpack is made possible by grants from the West Bay Community Foundation, the Florida Theatrical Association, and the United Way's Youth Violence Prevention Network, as well as show sponsor Emily Eason. So I'd like all of you to join me in thanking those partners who have made this production possible. To our Stage at Home viewers, a reminder that the past Stage at Home talkbacks are all available on Florida Rep's YouTube and Facebook pages. And as I say every week, we're now a free podcast on Spotify, Google Playlists, Anchor Breaker, and Radio Public. So you can also listen to us there. We hope to see you online next week as we get a rare look inside the seldom seen world of the theater's administration department. From finance to company management, next week we'll pull the curtain back on the office that makes the theater tick by paying bills, selling tickets, and picking actors up from the airport. We hear frequently from Florida Rep's artists, but next Friday you'll hear about the art of making the business run. So sign up on our Facebook page or news and events section on our website at floridarep.org. For updates about Stage at Home, follow us on Facebook, or make sure you're on our email list and the news and events section page at floridarep.org. And again, thank you all for spending the afternoon with us. And while we can't yet gather in the theater, we will see you there soon. So from all of us here at Florida Rep, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you all so very much. Thank you.